You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Americans After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Americans After Show.
You guys are looking so expensive. Hi, everybody. Bing is for doing, and we are doing the very first pilot episode review of The Americans.
Yeah.
Very exciting. It stars Carrie Russell of Felicity. Anybody? Felicity
Yes.
fame?
Love her long hair.
Matthew Reese of Brothers and Sisters.
Yep.
Also was a fan of that show.
Okay, excellent. I am Roth Cornet. I am an entertainment editor at IGN Networks. And you lovely ladies here with me, why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Jenifer Golden.
Hi, and I am Lauren Leonelli.
And we are very excited. We're a little short on time tonight, unfortunately, so we're just going to bang through sort of this pilot review, and then we're going to talk a little more in depth about the show starting next week. The first thing I want to know, I think the fun thing about this series is that it seems really outlandish, right? I mean, it seems like completely out of this world, like it would. And even it's fun because in the CIA, they're even saying this is ridiculous, this isn't really happening. But the truth is, it was inspired by a real case that happened in 2010. Where these spies were all outed, and then they said this is a great idea for a television show, but I think very brilliantly decided to set it in the 80s when the Cold War was a real threat. Because to be honest, I wouldn't think that there were still Russian spies operating in the U.S. in 2000.
No way.
What's the point?
Well, were they operating, or did they just find the sleeper cell?
They had they found the sleeper. Did you read about this?
I might have.
You did? Talk. What did you read?
Well, I didn't read that much about it. But I did read that it was inspired by that, and that it was so crazy because there are people in Yonkers that they found. And you sort of touch on that in this episode where it's like he's, you know, saying he wants to kind of get out of it and we can just go live our life in some miscellaneous city and they'll pay us off and reward us for coming clean. But so these people must have done that. I wonder if the people from 2010 chose that life.
About that,
Right.
Well, I guess not because they were in a sleeper cell.
But they were in sleeper cells, right? That they weren't. I mean, I don't know when you're operational or not, and I suppose if you guys know, leave it in the comments, because I don't even think that information was entirely released. I think it was also too. I mean, it's a very basic premise. Like there are Russian sleeper cells in the United States. Obviously, they were not. They weren't as hidden as these two characters are. They didn't have zero accent. You know,
I mean, that's what, sorry to interrupt you, but that's what really, like, I mean, I know that you think about, you know, okay, potential Russian spies or spies from somewhere else, but you don't, for them to go that far, I mean, in this episode, we're even playing with the idea that they just had kids just to cover, just for their cover.
What do you think? I mean, I think that maybe initially there was the idea they expect us to have kids. We're going to have kids at some point for the cover. But I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they love their kids.
They do.
They both do.
Their kids are them, literally.
I think they totally love their kids, and I think that Carrie Russell's character, Elizabeth, loves her children because she's a mother, and that's just whatever. But I think that she would do, and she said this a million times in the episode, anything for her country, including have children to cover her up and make her look like she's authentic. I think that the husband, Philip, however, is in love with her and really likes the idea of this family and wants to obviously, like, you know, it's more obvious, be American and whatever, and she wants no part of it. And I think the first time we ever saw that hint of that was when they first came to America, that scene, I think it was Virginia 1965 in the hotel room, and he looked at her. The air conditioning was like the coolest thing ever, and he looked at her and you could see it in his eyes, like, she's so pretty.
He looked like he was on his honeymoon.
And she was like, I'm not ready. She's instantly commenting on these American people are weak, and he's like, well, they might want us to have kids. I mean, it just showed how different they think about this whole thing, and I feel like, again, this is just me going off on what I feel because this is not stated yet just in the pilot, but I really feel like this is more of a job for her. and he has fallen in love with her and the idea of having this American family.
Yeah, I think so. But the cool thing, I think, that is at the end of the pilot, there is that little turn where you see, I mean, I love that they made the choice to have her be the one that is still committed to Mother Russia, to have her be the one that is like, oh, I'm your wife? Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
You know, I loved having that be her role, and I love the fact that she is so committed to what she does as an agent, but she can't say anything to her kids that she's trying to raise with her values. So she finds these really awful, insidious ways of trying to get her message across, like saying, I loved the moment with her daughter when her daughter says, oh, the Russians are lying, you know, and she can't counteract that because that would reveal her perspective.
Of course.
So she says something about something horribly nasty about this teacher's hair lip.
Yeah.
It reveals so much to me about the powerless position she's in with her own kids, and sort of her, I love that she has a little bit of, not because I like this quality in a person, but I think it's interesting in a character, this little bit of nastiness in her. They're weak. I don't like weakness.
Well, just
she's being Russian.
She's being the stereotypical like tough Russian. What
Sorry,
we would
Russians
expect.
out there. I'm actually Russian. I'm not like that Russian, but
but I mean, you know, it's kind of a stereotype. But in all due respect, in this era, in the time that she was brought up in, Russia was a very, very tough place to live, and so these people have been raised and they're tough people regardless. Plus, she is a KGB spy. Like, she has been trained. You saw the training she went through. This woman is tough.
Yeah.
She has some kind of post-traumatic still in it stress.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, there's no post about it, really. It's just she's been hardened.
She's living it. I love that she just, it's like you watch her cringe at anything that is conforming to America. Anything. Eating ice cream. She just can't even, she can't. She just doesn't want anything to do with it. That's what I'm saying. Eyes on the prize for her, and he's sort of just assimilating to this culture, and she is like, what are you doing?
And I think what's interesting and fun about that is that it's kind of representative of, again, this is a broad strokes, stereotypical strokes, but the two sort of sides of Russia at that time, where I think that there were people, and especially once the Cold War ended, which was very shortly after this time, you know, which is like this show in a way, I don't know how they're going to run the timeline, but
when did the actual Cold War end?
Well, Reagan in, I think it was in 1986, but I could be wrong. So it might be 1985. The Cold War didn't like officially, but they're making a movie about it now. He went to Iceland for a convention, and I think it was 1985 or 1986, but I'll know for sure next week. But yeah, I mean, there's sort of a time limit here. But the interesting thing is the two sides of Russia, the response was like really embracing westernized things and jeans and things like that once that door was open. And then I think other people that really wanted to cling to the traditions and things like that. So that's kind of fun. But what's interesting, and I wanted to ask you guys, is that I realized how indoctrinated I was watching this show, because as an American, because I immediately was like, oh my God, they're Russian spies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, God forbid, that's the worst thing ever.
Right.
You know, just from even like, I feel like the Cold War was still permeating in the culture a little bit as I was growing up. And those stereotypes were still in movies and things like that a little bit.
For me, yeah.
Did you guys experience that at all?
Yes.
I was a tiny little thing at that time.
I mean,
so it wasn't really something that we like.
Did you not see Rocky?
Yeah, but
no,
that's what I'm saying. Like even past,
I know,
even past the 80s into the 90s, I feel like that was still like an idea that we were taught.
All the bad guys in those action-packed movies were all Russian. Now they're all Middle Eastern.
Exactly.
And
I didn't really remember that growing up, but now I find it fascinating to look back at a time where I was growing up and like sort of fill in some of the blanks. But something that you had touched on, you're like, you know, I kind of expected them to have accents and they don't have accents. I wonder though, because there must have been a lot of people here with accents, because it was, you know, people left Russia obviously, and there were people that weren't KGB here. So to have them go as far as what you said, like having children to blend in, wearing Jordache jeans or whatever she was wearing.
They were Guess
jeans. Whatever
high-waisted.
Right.
Super cute.
We noticed the fashion, but you know, the lengths they would go to assimilate and become Americans is crazy.
Great. I am telling you, I really, maybe I'm wrong, but I really think she had kids to cover.
Well, I think she initially did, yeah, but I think that I also really like the moment where she smacked him, where he says, we're going to tell them the truth, because I think that was really clear to me is that she understood that there was a real danger that if her kids knew the truth about who she was, she would lose them forever. Because they would feel so so betrayed by that.
Yeah, I totally agree to set it straight. I mean, I think her whole business and having the children was basically like, this is I'm working and this is what we have to do. But for sure, I think that we'll see a softer side of her, and we'll see, because she's the hard one. Like, we see his emotion. He's much more of an open book. He's much more visibly vulnerable than she is. And I feel like we're going to start to see the softer side of her a little bit, and it will be with her children, because I think she's a mother. I mean, although she's this hardcore Russian, you know, KGB like trained woman, she's still, those are her kids, and most women who have children they're mothers at heart, even if she was doing it for another reason. So I do agree with you that she's like, that's her soft spot.
I think that will be her Achilles heel. Yeah, because that's everything to her. I think she probably went into, like you said, having the children as a cover up, and then like, you just love them. That's her family now. And from being removed from her country, this is her only family.
Right. Even
though she married her husband because this is part of the job, the children are her children. They're her flesh and blood regardless.
Yes.
And that's going to keep coming up over and over again. And I'm sure maybe deep down she does want to defect, but then what does she tell her children?
What does she do? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting because I really don't think she wants to defect. I mean, I think she really, really still totally believes in her cause and believes in what she's doing. I just thought, how challenging would it be for me to not only not be able to eat the things that are, I mean, you know, you get in those moods and you want to eat those things that are from your childhood, that are comforting for you, like to drink the vodka, to do the things that you
at night when they just took that vodka shot.
I'm such a stereotype, but it's true. But there are things
like,
that
what if she wants a pierogi?
What if she wants a pierogi?
Right?
What if she wants a pierogi?
They probably think they can't go into a Russian place because if they do, then they'll be.
There's zero sign that these people have any attachment to Russia. Any.
So not only can you not comfort yourself with those things from your own childhood, but you can't tell your child their grandmother's real name.
Oh no.
Or anything
I mean, she's
about
just
or their culture at all.
Elizabeth is just telling Philip her real name, where she came from, what her parents did. In fact,
Nadjeska.
Yeah, I was like, what was that? Well, yeah, it's a mouthful. We'll just go with Elizabeth for now. But I also think that that moment in the car where they had sex and then.
You can say sex.
Yeah, I know. They had sex. I feel like, again, and maybe this is the more extreme side of it, and this will clearly uncover through the season, but I think she was doing that just to keep him. She can tell that, because in the moment where, this is just, again, and maybe this is an extreme side, but when she had the moment with what was his name? The guy they kept in the trunk. I'm gonna.
Captain is what we can call him.
Right. Tima something or other. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering the Russian name. When Philip found out that he had hurt Elizabeth, I don't know that. Yeah, he raped her, but I don't think that wasn't said.
I think he connected the dots, though.
Oh, you think he figured it out? In that moment,
that's why I killed him.
He was ready to defect. He was going to take him out. He was going to give him to the neighbor. He was ready. And as soon as he found out that he hurt Elizabeth, he was like, done, killed the guy.
Yeah.
And she stood in that doorway and looked at him and was like, holy crap, this guy would do anything for me. And I'm fighting for my country. And all he wants to do is protect me. Like, I think she figured out in that moment just how much he is in love with her, and I think that she knew, if I need to keep this guy and protect my children, I have to start acting like I am going down that road too, and that's why she.
I think she really, I'm sorry, I think she really felt that. You know, I think that what happened for her in that moment, because you remember when he's listening to the tape? Mm-hmm. So he's listening to the tape of her having sex with somebody else as part of the job, and which I love that moment too, because can you imagine the poor guy? And she says to the man she's sleeping with, I need you to be stronger. And so to me, and that's obviously, we've seen that 2 or 3 times in this episode, she does not like weakness at all in herself or in others. So I think what she saw in that moment was his strength.
I agree with
strength
that.
of will. And I think it turned her on.
So so you're on the side of that she is actually starting to like him. Yeah. And that's why she's opening up.
And defended him later. Remember, because they said, you reported on him before, and she said, no, I was wrong. Because
she said she did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That could be true, but this also could be throughout the season. We could be doing to bring up Homeland, because the show is constantly compared to Homeland. We could be doing an Agent Brody, is he, isn't he, is he, isn't he? We could be doing that with her this whole time. Is she really in love with him, or is this just because it's her job? I'm right now on the this is her job side, but I could change.
And I'm somewhere in the middle, because you feel that she's doing it because she was attracted to him in the moment, and you think that she was doing it part of the business. I think it's a little bit of both. I think she was attracted to him in that moment, like you said, the strength.
That's a good point. Very good point.
But I also think she has her eye on the prize, and she knows that that's his weak spot. And she may be attracted to him here and there, and, she is a human after all. But I think her first goal is KGB. Her second is my kids.
But these boundaries
and he's somewhere in the middle as just sort of like a byproduct of the whole situation.
Right.
Plus, she may be a little lonely, guys.
Of course. I think and when you're in a situation like this and you're dealing with emotions and children and husbands and wives, like, it's going to get gray. So there could be those moments where you're like, maybe she's even confused. And that's probably really going to trouble someone like her, who is so straight and arrow and so strong. When she's starting to get emotions and all these things that are confusing her from her target, I'm sure she'll probably start to get a little bit, like,
it's going to be a balancing act.
Yeah.
This is also sex that she can control. Which is,
True.
I mean, if you think about, I think when I saw her rejecting him, I think that, she was raped very young, and that left a traumatic impact to her. Let's also remember that she just saw the man who raped her killed.
Of course. And she's like, don't touch me. Yeah.
Well, no, I think that maybe opened something up in her. And I think, like, all these other men that she's sleeping with, she's doing it for the job. When she slept with Philip initially, I think she did it for the job. I think this was one of the first times that she maybe really took control and said, I want to have sex now. I'm going to take control.
Good point, too. See, I was looking at it like she's doing it to keep him from not defecting. That is actually a really good point, though, and I do kind of could see how that would, like, definitely be, you're kind of switching me over to your side now, but I think that...
But no.
How convincing you are.
I know, but I
kind
don't
of like
know.
a spy.
KGB.
I feel like I questioned in that moment too, when she decided to have sex with him in the car, how often do they actually have sex? Like, is this the first time they've had sex in 2 years? Because she just won't do it, because the only other times they've had sex is just to get her pregnant so they could have the kids. And I'm wondering about that too.
Well, they do drink a lot of vodka.
They drink a lot of vodka. We're running so low on time, I just want to talk about a few general things about the show. Just because we don't have a lot of time, and we will talk about this all in more detail, sort of your general impressions. I really like it. I know people are comparing it to Homeland. I see that in terms of, it's obviously it's about the CIA and the KGB, which Homeland is not about the KGB, but it's about, us, sort of Homeland Security, threats to Homeland Security. It's set in a different time. It's set with a different enemy, I guess.
But they're still at Langley.
But what's great is that we are in the position of the viewpoint of the enemy. I think that's what makes this show interesting. We're in the viewpoint of the person that's meant, and the people that are meant to be the enemy of the United States. I think that makes this very interesting and very different than Homeland.
Totally.
And also, I mean, sort of, we had Brody's point of view, but that's its own unique thing in Homeland.
Yeah.
But it's also a very different tone. It's costumes, and I think it's a little bit more fun. I love Homeland. I think that's such a well-constructed show. I think this has a little bit, it's sort of those themes, a little bit of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is in there
totally.
too.
Well, it's the spy factor, so they have disguises, and they have, they're ripping off hair, and they're shaving, they're putting on makeup, and
with the daughter, that was my favorite moment, the disguise that he does to defend his daughter, and he takes that guy down.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. I think that, yes, there's similarities, like you were saying, to Homeland. I think that the music and the costumes, and although it's not like overt, the music is great, and it really puts you back in that. Plus, just visually, you're looking at old appliances and their coffee cups,
their
and
car, the Oldsmobile.
Everything is authentic. Even the $20 bills that she handed to the guy in the beginning, Elizabeth walked. I don't remember exactly. I'm trying to remember.
She was going to that guy. She was presenting money through the door, and the chain was locked. And
I
they
don't
were
know.
spying there on what was happening downstairs.
Oh yeah, she needed his apartment to look to try and catch the guy when he was walking around the corner. She handed him $20 bills. They were all authentic, like 80s, 20s. Like, did you?
Nice,
I looked
nice
at them like,
notice it.
well,
I did
because
not
it
notice
just
that.
they were so obviously different. But everything and down to the last detail. But I like how it's not overt. Like, there's not like crazy hair. I mean, you know, she doesn't have a perm and like frosty lipstick and stuff. Like, she still looks authentic, but just normal. And I like that it's subtle. But it's going to be interesting to see Homeland. You know, again, it's about Homeland security. Those are the similarities. But Homeland is in the present day, and they have present day technology. These people don't have that. I mean, there's no internet. There's no...
Yeah, and I think that's going to be fun. But the other thing that I think allows this to be a more fun show is that we know that it turned out okay. The Cold War ended.
Yes.
Right, we know what happened.
It didn't turn into World War III. And I think that what that does is free that up for us to enjoy it more.
It's a lot less anxiety-ridden.
Exactly. As something silly and free. With Homeland, I think that these wounds are open now. These threats exist
it's a sacred cow
now.
still.
You know what I mean? It is still a sacred cow, and I think that inherently gives the show a different kind of tone. I think the show wants to take a different kind of tone. Also, the creators
it is an FX show, so
you know, I mean, I think that they're saying, like, isn't this a crazy idea? Let's deal with these human beings, like you said, as real human beings. But isn't this kind of a crazy thing? And after all, it's okay.
FX is the perfect network for this because they can push the envelope and they can get a little dirty.
Would the Sun say shit?
The Sun said shit, and we're all saying it now. And they also, when the husband was listening to the tapes of Elizabeth with that man, it got a little dirty. And we, you know, this is the home of nip tuck people. So. Things could go awry, and it could get real good. We hope that they do.
You know what? And we were talking on the way here, I guess, but about how this relates to Homeland. And it's not so much that, like, the tone is the same, but it's more about the historical nature of it, the fact that we care about Homeland security, the fact that we're rooting for our country, but also we have to like these characters, sort of like Brody, and, you know, we're invested in it because of the times. Again, now that we're living in, there's like Zero Dark 30, there's Homeland. Yeah. It's the perfect time for this kind of show. But it's also like the viewer's version of Homeland if you don't have Showtime.
Yeah,
exactly.
Lauren got Showtime just to watch Homeland.
I ordered Showtime just for Homeland. I am that obsessed. And I swear I'm rewatching season run right now. I digress, but I swear I saw Tom Walker at a bus stop the other day on La Cienega in Beverly. I was like, that's Tom Walker.
He was murdered.
That's very possible. I mean, I think that I would say if I had any criticisms or if there were things that I had to pull out that I thought, okay, this is really silly, it's the total coincidence of the FBI, agent moving in across the street from them, and I think that there's a few things that seem just a little pat and a little perfect, but you know, at the end of the day, when I kind of can let that go and say, whatever, that's just part of the fun of this.
Exactly.
It's a big fantasy.
It is.
You know?
Somehow they had to run into each other.
I agree that was a little too like, all right, let's wrap this up in a pretty little present and make the FBI agent move next door. But I do like at the end, however, how Philip was watching the whole thing go down when the FBI agent snuck into the garage to check the car out. And it just kind of sets the tone of like, these KGB spies are always in front of you, which is sort of, you know, and it's a different perspective. Like, for example, we're comparing it to Homeland. We're rooting for the people who are protecting our country. Here, it's like our main characters are on the other side. Yeah. So it's almost like you're like, oh yeah, he knows what's going on. Oh wait, no, he's a bad guy though.
Well, I think that what they did there, I think that's why they made him want to defect, because I think it immediately allows you. I mean, if you and I think what's cool about it for me is that it made me confront my own indoctrination to be like, oh God, I hope he gets to defect. Do you know what I mean? Because of course, in my mind, that's so much better for him. Right. But I think it's cool to have her perspective there, going, well, why is that so much better? Right. And she does sort of question the overindulgence in American culture. Totally. And I think that that's kind of a cool thing because that's true.
Yeah, it is. You know? But at the same time, you as a viewer, if you're an American watching this, you kind of become a little bit patriotic.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to be like,
Well, you straddle that line. You're like, sometimes Americans are looked at like gluttonous and excessive.
But we also have AC and ice cream. Hey.
And, yeah.
And cool jeans.
And high-waisted Guess jeans.
And frankly, if you gave me the choice, I would take the AC and the ice cream. I really would.
I would too.
Although vodka's nice too.
I don't mind
But
a
we
nice
have
vodka.
that. We have
Marissa, you know I like my nice vodka.
All right, we're obviously kidding a little bit with the stereotypes, but do you have any last thoughts, overall thoughts about the show?
I'm excited to see what happens next from the previews for next week and the rest of the season. It's going to get crazy. And I'm excited to see it unfold, especially since, like you said, we do know what actually ends up happening. We're okay. We're here doing a show right now, so obviously it worked out.
Yeah.
Or is it okay?
Or is it? Are there operatives
dun, dun.
still today? Apparently there are.
Apparently, my Russian accent that I'm not letting come through right now will be. No, I'm kidding. Or am I?
I'm the Russian.
I agree. I am so excited to see what unfolds. I love the line that Carrie Russell's character is straddling right now. In my mind, like, is she just in this for the job, or is she kind of in love with this guy? Like, I like the emotionality underneath the layer, underneath this, like, we're here for a job thing, and I like the suspense that it offers. So I'm totally excited to see where I think that this story could get crazy, and it's going to get good.
Something Carrie Russell actually said why she did this show was because it's not a procedural. It's actually about, and Matthew Rhys said this too, is like, you get to be a badass and you get to have the emotional side to it, so it's a dream for an actor.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think inherently it is a little bit, I'll confess, I've seen the second episode, but it is a little bit episodic, but it's also serialized. It has like a case of the week kind of thing, but it also has, from what I've seen so far, overarching sort of serialized themes
that they string through.
And I talked to Matthew Rhys 2 weeks ago, and we'll talk about that and many more things next week.
You better tune in for that one,
tune
guys.
in, make sure to tune in and hear what Johnny American had to say for himself.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, where can they find you on Twitter?
Oh, at Jen the Jew. Perfect.
And I am at Lauren Leonelli on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and my website.
And I am Roth Cornet. That's ROTHCORNET on Twitter. All right. Yay! Americans.
Yay, Americans!
I know,
From Bing.com,
that sounds so messed up.
executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.